class of dental anatomy. This is something we all very well know about. These are the notations. In that we have these universal system notation wherein we write simple 1 to 8, then 9, 10, 11. We continue as 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then we continue on the other side here as. Then when we talk about Zygmundi or Palmer's notation, here in primary teeth they are dedicated by ABCs, while permanent teeth they are dedicated by 1 to 8 in each quadrant. And here whenever we write, we have to draw this quadrant and then we can write a particular number to specify a tooth. Then we talk about the FDI system notation. In the FDI system notation, the first number indicates a quadrant. So here if you have 1, that would indicate a quadrant, and here it has to be 2, 1. Here the number ones, the first number indicates the quadrant, while the next following number indicates a number of the tooth. So if you have 1, 4, that means in the first quadrant, fourth tooth, that will make maxillary first premolar. When we talk about the primary teeth, number 5, 6, 7 and 8 indicate the quadrants in the primary teeth. And again we have 1, 2, 3, 4 indicating the number of the teeth here. We have some terms to understand. They're very simple terms. Then we have monophyodont. Monophyodont, the word means there is only one set of dentition for entire life. So once a tooth erupt, it does not shed. It is supposed to remain in the mouth throughout life. That is monophyodont. Then we have diphyodont. That is wherein we have two sets of dentition, one being the primary and then we have the secondary set of dentition. That is typical of human beings. We have the primary teeth, then we have the permanent teeth. So we have two sets of dentition. Then we have polyphyodont. Polyphyodont, that indicates presence of more than two sets of dentition, typically seen in rodents, rats, wherein one teeth shed, another set comes, then that sheds, then the next set comes, and so on and so forth. Then we have homodont. If you see these prefixes, they are very indicative of the meaning of the term. We have homodont. Homo means same. And here in all the teeth, they have same shape. So you do not have incisors, canines or something. They all have same shape. But when we talk about heterodont, there is presence of different groups of teeth. Example in humans, we have incisors, canines, premolars and molars. So they are all different groups of teeth. So now if we see, we are diphyodont, that is we have two sets of dentition, and we are heterodont, that is we have different shapes in our dentition, different groups of teeth in our dentition. Then we have bunodont. Bunodont is a term for primitive type of teeth which is seen in primates, cats, dogs, etc. They have very simple conical cusp, although they do have cusp, but they are simple conical cusp. Then we have haplodont, which is seen in reptiles like crocodiles. These are simple cone teeth. See, this is conical cusp. So it is like you have cusp, but all these cusps are conical this way. But when we talk about the reptiles, they have a simple cone-shaped tooth and a simple root to that. If you talk about jaws of the crocodiles, we have always been comparing human jaws evolution from the crocodiles' jaws. Crocodile's jaw, they have a simple hinge-like movement. They do not have complex movement as we have in our TMG. Then we have triconodont. They are seen in early mammals. These mammals, they have typical three cusp arrangement, wherein largest cusp is in the center, and then we have these. So these cusps, presence of these conical cusps make it bunodont, but if we have three conical cusps, it will become triconodont or bunodont. Then we have tritubercular stage, wherein there are three cusps, but these three cusps are not arranged in line. They are arranged, if you see from the occlusal, they are arranged in triangle. You have one cusp, two cusps, and three cusps. Then we have quadritubercular stage, wherein you have four cusps. So it's, you can say, we humans again, we in many of the teeth we have four cusps. Then we talk about the firsts. In that we have first tooth to erupt in the oral cavity. We have the first primary tooth, the central incisors, while the first permanent tooth we have the first molars. When we say first succedaneous tooth, be very careful about these terms. First tooth, first tooth, first tooth. But first succedaneous tooth, mandibular central incisor. We're talking about the mandibular permanent central incisor. Because Mandibular first molar, although this is the first permanent tooth to erupt, but it does not have a predecessor. But the first tooth which has a preceding primary tooth is your mandibular central incisors. So you have primary tooth, following that you have mandibular central incisors. So it is the first tooth that is succedaneous to this tooth. But when we talk about the first molars, they do not have any primary tooth above them. The initial calcification of primary teeth, it starts in fourth month in utero. You may have figures like 13 weeks, 13 to 15 weeks. Please do not get confused. That means same as fourth month. Initial calcification of permanent teeth, it starts in first molar, and at birth the calcification of first molar has already begun. There's one very common question asked about this calcification part here. And if we take a radiograph at birth, typically how many teeth will we see on the radiograph? So the answer that comes to our mind is about the primary teeth. We have 20 primary teeth that can be seen, but yes, we have the first molars that have started calcifying, so we have 20 plus 4, that makes it 24 teeth we can see on the radiographs, and this is a very important thing. Then we have one more point here. Primary teeth, they start erupting at around 6 months of age, and by the age of 2 to 2.5, all the primary teeth have erupted in the oral cavity. In the root formation, it is completed by 3 to 4. If you see this, it's around 1 to 1.5 year after the eruption. Now, if you know the eruption age of a particular tooth, you can very well calculate its root completion age. For a primary tooth, you have to just add 1 to 1.5 year and you'll get the range. And for a permanent teeth, you have to add 2 to 3 years after their eruption age. We do have MCQ on this. Then the sequence of eruption. Most of the things in DA are kind of memory based, but they're not so difficult to remember. So in deciduous teeth, very simple sequence. It's A, B, D, C, E. Only D comes before C. Rest of the sequence is same. And you have to remember the ages of eruption. Then when we talk about the permanent teeth, in permanent teeth, in mandible, it's 6. The first tooth to erupt is the permanent molar. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is missing because it has already erupted. Then we have 7 and 8. So simple. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is missing. 7 and 8. So mandible sequence is as simple. Only you have to remove the 6. When you talk about the maxilla, how it goes? 6. Again, the first molar have erupted. Then we have 1, 2. But problem is the canine is lazy fellow here. Canine is shifted backwards. So here it shifts back behind 1, 2. So you have 4. Then it comes back 5, 7, 8. Canine, if it is really lazy, it can shift 2 teeth backwards. So you may have one more sequence, that is 6 is already erupted. 1, 2, canine has gone back. 4, 5, it's gone behind 2 teeth. It's come here. And then you have 7 and 8. So I don't think so it's as difficult to remember these sequences, and they are very important sequences. And beware, it's not that you make mistake in these MCQs because you don't know them. You make mistakes because you are careless. Please read the questions carefully. Please read the sequence carefully when you answer such questions. Now, as we see the sequence of eruption of mandibular and maxillary teeth, there's one more rule, a very typical rule, that is the mandibular teeth, they erupt before the maxillary teeth erupts. And this tendency, it is reversed in premolar eruption. So in all the teeth, be it incisors, molars, your mandibular incisor will erupt before the maxillary incisor. Your mandibular molar will erupt before the maxillary molar. But when we talk about a premolar, it's the maxillary premolar that erupts before your mandibular premolars. Why is it so? This will be clear in our next diagram here. What we see here is the sequence of eruption in both the jaws, that is maxillary and mandibular. We see here this is the first tooth to erupt, first being mandible, then we have the maxillary, then we have the mandibular incisor, then we'll have the maxillary incisor, then again an incisor and maxillary incisor. Then we have mandibular canine, and here next we should have maxillary canine, but this lazy canine goes here. Because the lazy canine is not erupting, our premolars they start erupting. While this mandibular premolar is still waiting for canine to erupt. So this gets delayed. So we have the maxillary premolar erupts first. Then we have the mandibular premolars. So this is where the sequence changes. So here only in premolars, maxillary premolars erupt before the mandibular premolars. There's one more point whenever there is an eruption, what happens here is if you measure the arch perimeter of deciduous and permanent dentation, if you measure it on mesial surface of mandibular first premolar, that is from here forwards, the arch perimeter decreases by about 4 millimeters. If you don't imagine this location from where we are measuring the arch perimeter, this sentence sounds a little tricky. And you do have an MCQ that arch perimeter of permanent dentation as compared to the deciduous dentation increases, decreases, remains same, etc. In that case, yes, it decreases by 4 millimeters, and where we are counting from is the mesial surface of the first molar. Next, we'll be talking about some surface markings. In that, we'll be talking about the cusp. Cusps are nothing but the elevations or mounds on the crown that divide the crown into the divisional parts. So these are the anatomic divisions of the crown. When we talk about mamelons, these mamelons are seen on newly erupted incisors and they represent lobes. They represent the developmental lobes. These mamelons, they are later worn out. So these mamelons are not seen in primary dentation. It's only seen in permanent. Then we have tubercle. Tubercle is something that is deviation from normal, that is deposition of a small extra enamel on the surface of the tooth, that would be tubercle. Then we have cingulum. Cingulum is a lobe that is seen on the lingual side of an anterior tooth. So this is your cingulum. Then we have ridge. Ridge is any linear elevation on the surface. This could be a marginal ridge. We see a marginal ridge here. These are the rounded borders of the enamel which are formed along the side. So this is your distal marginal ridge. And this is your mesial marginal ridge. Then we have triangular ridge. These triangular ridges are the ridges that descend from the cusp tip here and they go down here. So this is your triangular ridge. It is called as triangular ridge because if you see this side of the slope and this side, they are kind of making a triangle downwards. These both slopes on both sides of the ridge. These slopes on both sides of the ridge, they make sides resemble a triangle, because of which this is called as a triangular ridge. Next we have transverse ridge. What is transverse ridge? Any ridge that is, here you have a buccal ridge and here you have a lingual ridge. This total ridge will form your transverse ridge. So buccal and a lingual triangular ridge is joined to form a transverse ridge. Then we have oblique ridge. Any ridge that would cross an occlusal surface obliquely will be your oblique ridge, very typically seen in maxillary first molar. Then you have sulcus is depression or valley between the cusps and the ridges. You see here in blue. So these are your sulcus. Then we have developmental groove. Developmental grooves mark the division between the developmental parts. For example, we have this particular cusp as a developmental lobe. Then we have this. The distinction is your developmental groove, right? Then we have supplemental grooves. The grooves that extend from these developmental grooves are your supplemental grooves. Pits at the junction of these developmental grooves, these are the pits. Lobe, as we had been talking about, these are the primary section in the formation or the development of a tooth. One more point about the mamelon is, mamelons, they represent the lobes from which a particular tooth develops. And these mamelons, they usually get abraded because of the contact with the opposite tooth, except in the cases of malocclusion. Why we are discussing this here is because this is an important MCQ, and this is very typically seen in class 2 division 1 malocclusion, wherein the incisor, they escape the incisal wear, and these mamelons, they persist even in later years. We had discussed that calcification of primary teeth, it begins in fourth month, and here you have it in weeks. It begins in 13 to 16 weeks, and by 18 to 20 weeks post fertilization, all the teeth, they begin calcification, and your permanent molars, they begin calcification approximately at or near birth. Eruption in primary dentition, we have already seen the sequence, that was A, B, D, C, E, that is D jumped here. But when we compare this sequence in maxillary and mandibular, what we have is your maxillary and mandibular anterior incisors, they nearly erupt at the same time, with mandible preceding, usually preceding. So you can shift this a little bit here. Then you have your maxillary lateral incisor that precedes your mandible, then your D, then D here, then C here. You can see everything in maxilla except A and E erupts first. So all other teeth except A and E erupt first in maxilla. Your A, that is your central incisor, and E, that is the second molar, they erupt first in mandible. This is one more important MCQ point here. Root completion is about half done when the tooth erupts. There is a controversy in this half. Your Wheeler says 50% or half that term, while your McDonald's, some places say 75%. To be on the safer side, we stick to 50%, and if you have an option of marking 50 to 75%, that would be the best possible option. Next, we talk about the developmental lobes. Developmental lobes, nothing are the divisions from which a tooth develops. Your primary incisor develops from one lobe, primary second molar, it develops from 5 lobes. While your 3 cusp lower second premolar, maxillary and mandibular permanent first molar, they develop from 5 lobes. This is very important MCQ. And all the other permanent teeth, all molars, incisors, canine, and premolars, they develop from 4 lobes. This diagram will give you a rough idea of the dentition stages. So we start at 6 months by the eruption of first primary tooth. Then we continue till 6 years. Till 6 years, it's at around 2 to 2.5, your primary teeth all will erupt. Then up till 6 years, we'll have no extra teeth erupting. Then at 6 years, your first permanent mandibular first molar erupts. So with the eruption of this tooth, your dentition is called mixed, because herein you have primary and permanent both. Then it continues at mixed dentition, wherein eruption shedding takes place. At 12 years, exfoliation of deciduous maxillary second molar. Maxillary second molar is the last tooth to exfoliate, and following which we have no deciduous teeth left in our mouth. So this is the stage of permanent dentition. As we have been talking about anatomy, we have one more point to be noted here. We need to know what is line angle and what is point angle. I'll just try to draw a cube over here. If you take this cube, these are the surfaces of the cubes. This is the junction of two surfaces. This junction of two surfaces forms a line angle. While if we try to join three surfaces, if you just add up these three surfaces, where are these three surfaces contacting? We just mark it in blue. It is at this point they are contacting. So junction of three surfaces, combination of three surfaces, form a point angle. Applying this theory to the teeth, we just count the line angles and the point angles of the teeth. So in anterior teeth, we have 6 line angles. So this is your anterior teeth. So these are your line angles. So if you can see, this is the labial surface and this is the distal surface. So this is your disto labial line angle. This is your distolingual line angle. Then you have this. This is your labial surface and incisor. So this is labio-incisor line angle, and this side is your lingual and incisor, linguo-incisor line angle. Then this is your mesial side. So this is mesiolingual, and this is your mesiolabial. What we are not counting when we are counting the line angles, we are counting these 4. I'll just mark it in blue. We are counting this, 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 and then we are counting the junction of labial with incisal and lingual with incisal. We are not counting these two small line angles. That is what your book says. So it's not, I tell you not to count these lines. Your book doesn't count these lines. That is why we have 6 line angles in your anterior teeth. When we start counting your point angles, we count all of them. So we count this. I should draw it in red. We count this, 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 and this. So you have 4 point angles, but 6 line angles. But when we go ahead with your posterior teeth, we count all of the line angles. So if you see here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 line angles. I think so you can name them very well. I will not name them. And these 4 point angles. So these are your 4 point angles of the anteriors and 4 point angles of the posteriors. Then we have point angles and line angles in the cavities. Number of line angles and point angles in the cavity. There are 2 ways. Either you can mark this up, but I would suggest not to do that. You can count them here. So just to understand this, we'll first draw a tooth. So this is your tooth. This is the occlusal surface. And if I try to draw a cavity here, so this is your class 1 cavity. Now if we count the line angles and point angles, what we have here is 1, 2, 3 and 4. 4 point angles. And when we count the line angles, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And vertical ones, that is 5, 6, 7, 8. And we have 8 line angles. Now the question should come to your mind, why are we not counting these top line angles or these top point angles? We are not counting them because they are cavo-surface line angles or point angles. So as a rule, we are not supposed to count cavo-surface angles. Cavo-surface means the angle that is formed between the cavity and the surface. Now if you try to convert this cavity into class 2, how it becomes? I'll not draw the tooth this time. This is your class 2 cavity. This is the step, and this is supposed to be rounded. So this is cavity, this is the step, and this is the gingival part of the step. This is a class 2 cavity. If you start counting the point angles, what you have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And if you count the line angles, what you get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. We are not counting this line angle, this point angle and this line angle and these point angles because here your surface continues. So this is your cavo-surface line angles and point angles. So that is how you get 6 and 11. With these two, I think so you can go ahead with class 3 cavity wherein you have this triangular kind of cavity. You can just count it for the same. And you have class 4 cavity which is same as class 2. Class 5 is same as, it's on the gingival surface, but whole rest of the anatomy is same as class 1. In MOD you have to add one more step on this side. So with these basic preliminary diagrams, you can just count the line angles and point angles for rest of the cavities, and they are very common source of MCQ. Next, we talk about the attachment of teeth to the jaw. Herein we have few more terms. Acrodont. The term acrodont. So you have acrodont. Herein what you have is a tooth which is ankylosed to the bone. So this is your bone, and your tooth is ankylosed here. We don't have a socket. It's just a tooth sitting on the bone. So this is acrodont. Then we have thecodont. Thecodont, herein we have the socket, and this socket is very deep. There is no ankylosis. There are roots which are cylindrical. So normally what roots we have in humans are conicals, but if you see, the roots here are cylindrical. So this is typical of your thecodont. Then we have ankylosed thecodont. In ankylosed thecodont, what happens? Yes, there is a socket, but the tooth is ankylosed to the jaw. Now, what is the difference from acrodont? In acrodont, you had the tooth sitting on the top of it, but here in the tooth is going inside the bone. but yes, still it is ankylosed. So that is your ankylosed thecodont. So once you have a socket, it becomes theco. When it is ankylosed, it becomes ankylosed thecodont. And we have one more subthecodont, which we'll see in the next slide. This subthecodont, also called as pleuroecrodont or prothecodont, what it has groove and a socket. See, now at this point, what we need to know is what is a groove and what is a socket. If you have a depression or a hole inside the bone, this is your socket. But if you have something like this that doesn't go deep inside, this will be called as groove rather than a socket. So in this case, what we have is we have a socket, part of it, and we have a groove, both. So both a groove and shallow sockets are present. And this groove, if you talk about this groove, it is high. It has a high labial wall and a low lingual wall, and there is also ankylosis present. So this is your subthecodont. Then we have the pleurodont. In pleurodont or pleuroecrodont, teeth, they are ankylosed to the jaw, but there is no socket. If you can see, it's just a groove, and they're ankylosed to the groove. Then we have olecodont. Here, teeth are set in the groove, but there is no ankylosis. And with this, we come to the end of this part. Please go through the text which we have covered till now, and we'll have a short test on this.